From the labyrinth of loops to the variable valley, we'll see the cliffs of value first. JavaScript's right up your alley. Built-ins, bluff, file spas, array, archipelago. Declarations in a desert where you'll find out how far you'll go. Learn to program, take a ride, buy a ticket, step inside. All aboard, you're at the station to increase your education. Bon voyage, skinny dip! As long as functions you don't skip on this, the JavaScript road trip.
So that was level 2. Conditionals are pretty cool, huh? And another cool thing about the JavaScript language is that it has tons of built-in functions that you can use at any time. You can call them whenever you want. And we're going to look at a few of those in this level 3, built-ins bluff. Let's take a look at some existing JavaScript functions that you can use to get and send information from the user of your website. The first one we'll take a look at is alert. This will send a message to the user of your website in a small pop-up window. You can see here that when we call the alert function, we've placed a string inside of a set of parentheses that will get alerted to the user. But you can put any expression inside these parentheses that will be evaluated and then presented to the user. Once the alert function is evaluated, a small pop-up window is present in the browser that the user can click OK on, acknowledging that they have seen the alert. Another built-in function is the confirm function. It asks users for a consent to move forward with a specific action. Here we're using the confirm function to make sure that a passenger wants to ride train number 8. A small window appears when the confirm function is evaluated, presenting the user with the opportunity to say OK or cancel. If the user actually hits OK, the confirm function is going to return a true Boolean value. If they hit cancel, we'll get a false Boolean value. Yet another built-in function is called the prompt function. This will send a message to the user and also retrieve an entry. So here we've got a prompt function that says, "What soul hath allowed the canines to exit?" And the user appropriately responds, "Woof, woof, woof, woof," and then hits OK to say, yes, that is acceptable. Prompt is a cool function because you can request information from the user and then store it in a variable. Here you can see a prompt function that requests the user's name, and that name gets stored inside the variable username. When we run this code, a small window will pop up in the internet browser, and the user can enter their name in the field that's inside the window. So if Code School professor Greg Pollock was sitting at our website and entered his name into our prompt window, his name would get stored in the username variable. We could then call that variable, and his name would be returned. Now let's see how the confirm and the prompt methods can work together to ensure we have correct information from the user. If we prompted, "Yo passenger, what's your name?" and Greg enters his name and selects OK, his name will be stored in the username variable, and then we can use the username variable inside of a confirm function to ensure that he has entered his name correctly. A small window will pop up in the internet browser and ask Greg if he's sure that that's his name, and he can say OK for yes or cancel for no. But wait a minute, what happens if Greg presses cancel on either the prompt or the confirm? We need a way of verifying whether he has actually inputted something for his name, and then whether his name is correct or not in the confirm box. To do that, we'll need the type of operator. The type of operator allows us to identify the kind or type, of course, of value inside a variable or an expression. Here you can see that if we take the type of true as an entry, we get Boolean as a response because true is a Boolean value. If we do type of that's not a valid entry, we get a string because the expression that follows type of is a string. Type of 42 will return number, and type of undefined will return the type undefined, which is its own type. And type of null, which is special and we'll need it soon, returns an object as a type. The type of operator is useful in checking a variable's contents. Very useful here. You can see that if we prompted, "Yo passenger, what's your name?" and we stored that in the variable username, Now, if the user ever selects cancel, regardless of whether they've input anything into the field, prompt will return a special value called null, and null is not a string. So now if we were to take the type of username which had a value of null, we would get a return from the type of object. That's because null is a generic JavaScript object. This is really cool and useful because then we can alert the user that they have not entered a valid entry. We can do that by saying, if the type of the username variable is not a string, uh-oh, whoops, you didn't enter your name. And then we can start that cycle over to make sure that they have entered something acceptable. Now that we know how to handle a cancel from a prompt function, let's look at how to handle a cancel from a confirm function. It's pretty easy because the confirm function returns a false value if we get a cancel from the user at any time. Then we can just use a simple if statement, a Boolean check, to make sure that the user has confirmed their entry. If in fact we get a truth value from confirm, then we can do some code. Alright, so now that we're masters of confirm, prompt, and alert and know how to move between the three, let's see if we can make a simple name entry system for our train service. We're going to write a confirmation loop, and let's prepare some pseudocode first that sort of plans our solution using these functions. So in our trains.js file, you see these three dots here. That just means we've got a whole bunch of extra code handling our trains. And here we will start our confirmation loop. We know that we want the loop to continue until the user has confirmed a name. And inside the loop, the first thing that we'll do is we'll request the name using our prompt function that we know. Following that, if the user says OK, add a confirm function, we will acknowledge their accepted entry and then exit the loop because we're done and we don't need to check it anymore. Otherwise, we'll cycle back to the top of the loop and start the service over. Okay, now let's fill this in with some real code. The first thing we'll need is a variable, we'll call it gotName, that will tell us whether we actually have the user's name correct or not, and we will use that in our loop. You can see here that we have a while loop that says while our gotName is false, that means we don't have the name yet, we'll do the following things. The first thing is that we'll establish a username variable just like we did before, and then prompt to the passenger, yo passenger, what's your name? And here's our cool if statement that says if we get a confirmation with the statement, are you sure your name is, and then the username variable. If that returns a truth value, then we'll alert to the user, sup username, and then here's the money, we have to set the gotName variable, which is a flag, to true. So now the loop knows that we have the user's name. Once that's true, what happens? We go back to the top of the while loop, and we see now that gotName is no longer false, and we would exit the loop because we have the user's name. But what would happen if the if statement didn't trigger because we did not get a confirmation? Well, we would cycle back to the top of the loop and continue the process again.
So now let's see this loop in action. Up here we have our index.html file as well as our trains.js source file, within which is this code down here, our very basic confirmation loop that we just built. When we load our index.html file, our loop in trains.js starts to load, and we get our very first prompt, and it says, yo passenger, what's your name? That's this part right here inside our loop. And we're going to go ahead and type in a wrong name, Johnny Appleseed, and select OK. Our loop says, are you sure your name is Johnny Appleseed? That's this part right here, the confirm box. And since that's not me, I'm going to go ahead and say cancel, no, that's not me. And then it cycles back to the top of the loop and reprompts us for my correct name. So I'm going to go ahead and type in my right name, Jason Millhouse, and hit OK. Now it says, are you sure your name is Jason Millhouse? Which it is, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK, and it says, sup Jason Millhouse, and I can close that box out. And notice no more pop-up boxes appear. That's because internally, the gotName variable is now true, and so the loop will exit and the pop-up boxes will cease appearing.
This is a very common way to use built-in pop-up windows to retrieve and ensure correct information. Hope you've had a great time with built-in functions, and now we will release you to the challenges. For the bloopers. To the user, sup. And then, I can't get through it. Something valid, JSON Millhouse. Enter.